If you are interested in the carnivore diet, this episode is for you. We are going to kind of explain exactly what it is. We're going to give you the pros, the cons. We're even going to give you some ways to take the carnivore diet and make it even better for you. To open it up, what is the carnivore diet?
So the carnivore diet, most people know of it through Sean Baker, who made it kind of popular. And then there was another lady that did something. I think it was like the lion diet, but it's an animal-based diet. You're not adding any like vegetables or fruits or anything like that. And it's funny because there's, what's the guy's, Paul Saladino.
Yep.
Even him, he's restructured the carnivore diet to be able to add the things to fill the gaps. Because, we've talked about it before. There's tons of different dieting styles and everyone has benefits, but there are some deficiencies that are in plans that, you got to think about and fill the gaps on them, because any plan could be a good plan, but also too, if you're not fixing the deficiency, it'll be a bad plan. And,
Sure.
I know that's the goal of, let's talk about deficiencies in it, but the carnivore is more animal-based: protein, steak, eggs, beef.
Yep.
If it comes from an animal, it's good to go. If they're, liver, organ meat, all of it.
Yeah. I think we should start too, like when we get into the diet, let's start with the cons. Because I think that's the immediate reaction for a lot of people when you say like, oh, I'm doing a carnivore diet. You get it from all like the dietitians and everything. It's like, well, you need your vegetables and you need fruits. And technically, if you're going to fully go for the carnivore diet as it is, it's just animal products. So you're not getting vegetables, you're not getting fruit. So I think that's what you're talking about.
Well, and I think a lot of the deficiencies that happen, you're not going to really see it in a 30 or 60 day, maybe by a 60-day period. So almost everyone says, oh, it's amazing, my friend did great, but maybe their attention was 60 days.
Right.
And then they but someone who does, the carnivore long-term, there are some cons. So like if you're going only proteins, animal-based, not having any fruits and vegetables, so you're going to lack some of the phytonutrients. You're going to lack some of like the antioxidants and vitamins that you get from fruits. So, that's something that over time, not having the fiber, you get constipated, not go to the restroom like you should. For some people, depending on what they have health issue-wise, they could actually get like diarrhea. So the complete opposite, not common, but most of the time it's constipation's a big one. And then just the phytonutrient deficiencies and the vitamin deficiencies that come from not having those other macronutrients into your diet.
Yeah. And to your point is like, I think when people most of the time that people do a carnivore diet, it's like you said, like people do it for like 30 days.
Yep.
It's like, can I do this for 30 days? And that's good for you. But if you're going to do it long-term, there really is no long-term research on it, on like what are the deficits, like what will happen over years and years of doing it. I know you mentioned the Lions diet.
Yep.
Like I know I think it was Jordan Peterson's daughter. Actually, that did it.
It was actually, Michaela Peterson.
But I know her story is like, she did it. She's been doing it for 8 years and it completely reversed all of her autoimmune disorders. So although you can look at it and say, you don't know what the cons are long-term, we also don't know what the pros are.
Right. And
the one example that I do know, it was super beneficial for her.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have a lot less inflammation just because some people don't tolerate certain vegetables. And we all know, like, if we can mitigate inflammation, especially in the gut, which is our second brain, systemically, you see inflammatory markers come down, inflammation across, and we've talked about inflammation multiple times. Inflammation is the feeder of cellular dysfunction. Cellular dysfunction can create problems that just depending on the person and predispositions. But in general, I would say the bigger cons are going to be not having those phytonutrients and those antioxidants that come from fruits. Another big one is if you're cardiovascular, like not in a good spot, or you have a high chance for like cardiac plaque deposition, or I always call them plaque makers, eating like a high fat, high saturated fat is probably not the best thing for them. But, you could argue that, I guess, by not having fruits and sugars, because carnivore is pretty much ketogenic, right?
Yeah.
You're not having carbohydrates and grains and rice and bread. You're eliminating. So, we all know uncontrolled sugar feeds inflammation as well. So it just depends on the person. So I would say if you're cardiovascularly not in a good spot, I think you could do carnivore. It just has to be healthier cuts of meat, so you're not getting tons and tons of saturated fat.
Yeah. And
I was going to add to that. So if you're someone, and I don't condone any one plan, there's multiple plans and you could almost adjust plans to fill the gaps. If you're somebody who does have maybe a cardiac history, one of the best tests that you could do is get a CT coronary score or a CT calcium score and see if you're even a plaque maker, because you could have crap cholesterol, but it doesn't mean that you're a plaque maker. And then a lot of times if that comes up, which I think everybody by 40 should get one, if that comes up high, you could do like a CTA, which goes a little bit deeper and it shows like the amount or the percentage of plaque that's built up in all the arteries. So though you should do that anyways by 40, probably the best, safest, cheapest test you could do.
Yeah. I think for like the everyday person, the biggest con of this would be like the social aspect.
Yep.
Right. Where it's going out to dinner gets pretty tough. And it's like, you have to eat very specific things. You know, a lot of people don't want to be the guy that goes to the restaurants like, can you cook it in butter, not seed oil, and like these things. So it's like, that is a big aspect to it. And then that's where it's easy to fall off. Is where it's like, you know, you go out, there's no more pizza and pasta and all the things that you love. You have to completely pull back from that. So I would say outside of all like the medical and the nutrition things, that would be the toughest part of doing something like this.
Yeah, I think certain plans, you know, it's fun. It all depends on like how you look at it.
Yeah.
Like I personally, when I get stressed or if I'm trying to be on a plan but not be super rigid, honestly, ketogenic and carnivore are probably one of the easiest things you could do. You could go anywhere and get a burger. You could get and drop the bun. You could get a steak. You get fish. You really could eat out and you know, not really, unless you're trying to be hardcore carnivore, which I'm not a fan of, just hardcore carnivore. It just depends on the person. Now, if you're not used to eating meat and you're not used to eating protein and you're used to like a high carb crap diet, it's going to be tough. And most people usually will, after 30, 60 days, they see the results and then they fall off the deep end.
Yeah. And going into that, switching to the pros is the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Right. Where you don't got to count your calories anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're just eating meat. So it's good for your high protein, low carbs. You don't have to worry about putting fat on. So like, that's definitely one of the bigger pros. What else would you say from like a nutrition?
Well, and I would say if you're someone who's overweight, you still want to count calories in general, but let's kind of go back, like high protein is very satiating. High protein, you're not going to sit there and eat, 10 pounds of meat. Like, and if you do, you're going to feel like you have a brick in your stomach and you probably won't eat the rest of the day. So inherently you're going to be able to have less calories. But, I talked about it, thermic effective food. Protein is the one thing that makes you feel full and satiated, and you could overconsume protein and you probably still won't kill your calories. And, thermic effective food is like, what does it take to break that food down? You almost lose 20 to 30% of the calories that you consume through digestion. And so whereas like carbs and sugars and fats, you get a lot more out of those calories you eat, and they're never satiating. You're not going to support lean muscle the same way. So, whether it be ketogenic or carnivore, which is pretty much a modified ketogenic plan, that's probably the best pro. Because you don't have to get meticulous with calories unless you're just somebody who's a huge eater that could eat a ton of food. I know if I eat more than like 8 to 10 ounces of meat, my stomach feels like I got a brick.
Yeah. And when I did the carnivore, something I noticed was my energy. Like I would say I had less like ups and downs throughout the day. Like I was pretty high energy from the moment I woke up to the point I went to bed. And it wasn't like I was like overly energetic or very tired. I was just like a baseline middle. And it was great. Like what is that? Is that because like it's the lack of the blood sugar crashing?
So no movement in blood sugar. Yeah. Once you kind of take carbohydrates away, and let's just talk ketosis in general, when you don't eat carbohydrates, your body will deplete glycogen. It'll deplete the sugar out of the muscles, the liver. And all of a sudden, once your body balances back out, and you're not having carbon sugar, you never get the highs or the lows. So a lot of people do feel more energy, more sharp. Just like if you were to fast, during that window, you don't have anything. It's mostly blood sugar. You're not affecting your blood sugar. So you feel more consistent. And honestly, a lot of times it prevents people from wanting to crave sugar because there's no movement in the blood sugar. It's really good for someone who has like insulin resistance. It's a good way to get them back away from like eating a bunch of the high carb crap food. And then you see a ton of weight loss usually initially just because the change in higher protein, less carbohydrates. Yeah.
And I'm with you where I'm big on like, you can't just take one diet for what it is and just do it. Like everybody's different. It's the bio individuality of it. But so if we were to take the carnivore diet, what are some ways that you would take the carnivore diet and kind of like change a little bit just to make it better overall?
I mean, first off, with most diet plans that are restrictive like that, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, keto, whatever, make sure that you're getting a good quality multivitamin just to fill the gap in what you're not consuming. As far as carnivore, if you are someone who eats like organ meat, liver, brain, kidneys, pancreas, there's a ton of benefits. I personally can't. I just can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah,
so like it's, you could actually look to add like an organ supplement. I actually have a good friend, and I do carnivore quite a bit. Obviously I'm modified carnivore, so I could fill the gaps in it. But he actually has an organ supplement. There's multiple out there. You have like Ancestral, I think is another supplement, but he's actually locally. Actually I brought it just to kind of show you, but this can fill the gap and get a lot of the minerals and vitamins that you don't get, especially if you're not having organ meat, because just having straight up protein like beef and eggs will fill some of the gaps for you, but, you're still going to be deficient in certain things. So this is a great way to
What is it?
So this one's based beef organs. So it has literally everything on it. I mean, it has the liver, the heart, the kidney, the pancreas, the spleen. So you're getting a lot of the like vitamins and minerals that you won't get from just eating straight protein, like meat.
Right.
So, and then if you're not adding a supplement, but I always say blanket every plan you have with a decent multivitamin, and then you could fill the gaps. If you're somebody who's like the liver king and wants to eat freaking, pancreas to improve, digestion, because you will get some, probiotics or from doing that. It's funny. He was like, eat liver to fix the liver. It's somewhat true, but I don't know many people that are just going to sit there and eat up straight up liver or pancreas. So that's a nice supplement. I use it whether I'm on carnivore. I use it when I'm not on carnivore because I'm getting those vitamins and minerals that you typically won't get.
Would you recommend adding any extra multivitamins, collagen, anything like that?
So, you like beef collagen. That's a great way to kind of just help fill a gap on some of the protein, hair, skin, nails. If you ever feel like you need to feel, even on intermittent fasting, I periodically will add in like a collagen type drink, like a beef collagen, just curb my appetite. So yes, definitely a collagen supplement. Those are great ways to kind of fill some of the gaps. The other thing, and I was just going to say, it kind of slipped my mind, is you already said multivitamins.
I know you should probably include
pre and probiotics. I talked about it. Like if you're eating like the pancreas, you're probably going to get some out of that, but most people aren't going to do that. So I'm a big fan, no matter what plan, add a good pre and probiotic, make sure it's a good quality one.
I was going to say, let's get specific on that because I know you're big on, you piss a lot of probiotics out.
Yep. So I like, still to date, the best one on the market in my book is Seed. It's a daily symbiotic. They have a patent on the 2 capsule system. A lot of times when you take probiotics, they don't survive the gut. So this one allows you to get more out of the probiotic you're taking. It has the prebiotic in the first outer capsule, and the inner capsule makes it. So I've seen night and day difference across the board with so many patients at all the clinics. So adding a high quality pre and probiotic just to help digestion, because you're not getting, a lot of the stuff from reducing like vegetables and all that out of your diet too.
Yeah. And what would you say, because I know at least in my experience, when I did the carnivore diet, like the most serious, like actually very strict on it. In the beginning, I was definitely pretty lethargic, and I would use fruit for just sugar in the morning. Like I would just do a little bit of fruit. It's like, would you say it's a good tweak to add? Yeah,
I think if you look at Paul Saladino, now there's fruit and some certain vegetables in there. I think what happens with a lot of people when you go from no plan to a plan, especially if it's a ketogenic style plan, carnivore, keto, dirty keto, whatever, you're going to have a transition period that happens. So a lot of times, you cut the carbs. If you drastically cut them across the board, it takes like 48 to 72 hours for your muscles to get depleted if you add a decent amount of glycogen. And so what happens, your blood sugar drops, but you don't really, because the liver, basically wipes out pretty quick. Yeah. So your blood sugar drops, but you don't really get into that ketogenic state. So some people get the keto flu, or they feel lethargic, or they have a headache. And so one of the best ways to kind of transition to, if it's a low carb ketogenic plan, is a little bit of fruit in the first week of the plan. Is a great way to keep your blood sugar stable, take away that keto flu and issues. And then once you kind of been depleted, glycogen levels are out of the muscles, take the fruit away and you'll pass into ketosis. But ketosis is a good part of why this plan, I think, has got so much traction is because people have lost a lot of weight on it.
Yeah. I mean, you're not eating any carbs.
Yep.
Like you're just going to watch fat start shedding off.
Yep.
And it's like, and that's the trick too. But I still think the biggest issue is for most people is the amount of discipline it takes to stay on a carnivore diet. Like I did 60 days. And after that, I was like, I felt great. I looked great, but it was like, man, I just want pasta.
I'll agree with you on strict carnivore. I personally like this style. It just fits what I like to do. I've done it for so long as far as mostly protein, low carb.
I think a big misconception too is if people haven't done it yet, what you don't realize is once you get into it and you really start doing it, like you don't crave the sugar anymore. Like you just don't even think about it. You don't want it. Cause like you realize how good you feel, how much energy you have, how like clear you are mentally. It's like, why would I go back? Kind of thing. I just think
once you put them back, then it's like all carbs.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
but
it does. It sets people up to do that quite a bit.
But when you do add it back on, you do start eating carbs. Like you see, like you just bloat immediately within like 3 days. You're just like, oh, like all that work kind of just went away.
I mean, most of it's going to be water weight on the front end couple of days. Cause for every gram of carb, your body pulls 2.7 grams of water to store as glycogen. Right. So you move carbs in, you move water in, the muscles fill up. And so that's always temporary weight. But what I don't like about it, and this is why I'm really cautious with people that do carnivore or keto carnivore, it's like coming off the plan. You got to ease the carbohydrates back in, give your body a chance to kind of utilize them. Because if you put them in too quick and in abundance, you tend to crave more and you eat more. And then it's like, now they fell off the deep end. Yeah.
So kind of to bring it all together is who do you think is like the right type of person to do a carnivore diet? Like
anyone who likes meat.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, better like animal-based stuff, eggs, fish.
Yep.
So anyone who's okay eating those type of foods, because, I feel like a lot of people want to do a plan, but it's so far away from what they're going to do. And it's probably not going to be long-term.
Yep.
So somebody who definitely likes animal-based products, somebody who can definitely have the discipline and willpower to take carbohydrates out of their diet.
Yeah. Would you say like if you're looking to lose weight, say, for example, that's a great diet to go for? Yeah.
I think it's a great way to kind of kickstart it. And then you could kind of get loose, and even ketosis, not jumping into dirty keto, but I think those are the better plans to fix blood sugar really quick. Because when you're not having carbs, your pancreas actually gets more efficient and you get insulin sensitive again. So somebody who's looking to have something rigid to stick them to a plan and to see some results. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a good point to make too, though, is it can be a good diet for some athletes, but not all athletes.
Yeah.
Right. Because like if you're doing long distance running, if you're playing a sport like soccer or basketball,
anything I consider high intense, it's probably not going to be ideal. If you're someone who's trying to improve their metrics on weight in the gym, probably not going to happen. If you're somebody who's triathlon training or ultra marathon training, or what's the race you do? Like the whole,
it would be, or like Ironmans or ultras,
or ultras or Hydrox or CrossFit.
Yeah.
Like your gas tank is empty. And even though you have some fat, and then what happens though, is if you're somebody who's actually in decent shape and you don't have fat and you're not having carbs, your performance is going to be garbage.
And you start burning muscle.
Yep.
Protein.
So that's kind of, that's probably the person that just has to be a little more meticulous. I always get, if you're that person, a great way to kind of do a modified plan would be is maybe you add intra-workout carbohydrates like highly branched chain cyclic dextrin or carbolin to be able to fuel that activity and then get right back into the regular sequence. I do that. I pretty much live that way, more lower carb, more protein. But when I do get physically active, I just make sure I have some gas in the tank so I could actually perform, and I'm not picking up pink dumbbells or anything like that. So
yeah. Is there anything else that you would add on for someone that is looking to do the carnivore diet should know? Yeah,
I would say just make sure you're filling the gaps. Don't go, cultish carnivore, like that is only short-lived. 100% make sure you get some fiber. If you're not adding vegetables, add a fiber supplement. I actually write just plain psyllium husk, or even the product I use right now, which I like, is colon broom. I would call it colon blow, but yeah. So definitely make sure you just fill in the gaps on the fiber, because if not, you'll probably get constipated, and that's not fun.
Cool. Well, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the carnivore diet, drop them down below. We'll get to them, and Jeff will address your concerns as we can. But overall, I think if you were to put this on a scale of 10, where would you put the carnivore diet out of all the other ones?
For the general masses, with deficiency fixes or without?
With deficiency fixes.
I would say 8, 9.
Yeah. I think it's a super healthy diet to go for if you're adding in the right things, if you can be disciplined on it, and you're not an extreme athlete. I just think it's very important to note that if you're an extreme athlete, carnivore is not going to be the answer.
And that's, like I said, we're going to talk about multiple diets. It's like find the plan that you somewhat know you could do with foods that you like, and then just make sure it fits your goals.
Yeah. Like I said, any questions about the carnivore diet, drop them down below. We appreciate you, and we will be back for the next one.